Hi, welcome to ThinkTech Asia. This is your host, Hong Jiang, and I'm an Associate Professor of Geography at University of Hawaii at Manoa. My guest today is Roger Epstein, who is known to many people in the community in Hawaii and Honolulu, and he's involved in many different fascinating things. And today's topic is living from the reality of our connectedness. So just very little about Roger now, and I'll have Roger talk about yourself later to talk about how you became involved as a corporate tax lawyer, getting involved in all these different traditions, Confucianism, Buddhism, and other many different traditions. I'm trying to look, but I'll have you talk about those.
Okay.
And so today, he's going to weave a lot of these different traditions in the discussion of forgiveness, connectedness, and spirituality, science, religion, academic studies, you name it. And Roger, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Hong. So nice to be with you.
Yeah, great to be with you. And by the way, before we start, I want to give our audience a heads up that given all the many things Roger has been involved, we're having 2 sessions with him. So today and 2 weeks from today. So now, let's talk first about this title, Living from the Reality of Our Connectedness. What do you mean by connectedness?
We now know from science what we've known from all the traditions in the world, that there is a connective energy of which we're all made up of. We've known since quantum physics that even though we appear to be really solid, if you dig down, the essence of who we are is essentially vibrations. Mm-hmm. We're energy. So if you took an atom and you blew it up so the neutrons and electrons were the size of tennis balls. So get this picture in your mind of an atom with the neutrons and protons here and the electrons spinning around. If you took the electrons and you blew them up so they were the size of tennis balls, the atom would be the size of the Earth. So get your arms around, it's impossible to do, but try that you and I, the air, this table, everything in its essence is made up of 18 tennis balls circling the Earth.
Okay.
What's the rest? What's the Earth in that picture?
Mm-hmm.
It's energy. It's not matter, it's energy. And so then think about, okay, our physical body starts with an atom, and then you put an atom together with other atoms and it becomes a molecule. So for instance, H2O is 2 atoms of hydrogen, 1 atom of oxygen. Mm-hmm. Both of those are gases, but when you put them together, it's water. It doesn't look anything like the atom. Then you put the molecules together, it becomes a cell. Then the cells in a human being become an organ. Then the organ becomes a human being. Now, you can't see, when you look at you and I, the cells, can't even see the organs. But we know that they're in there. We're made up of it.
Okay.
So the sum of the parts doesn't look anything like the parts themselves. So let's get ourselves back to we're solid. Now we go backwards to organs, back to cells, back to molecules, back to our essence as atoms, which are essentially all energy.
So we share the same stuff, basically.
Well, we're connected. I mean, if you got, how many trillions of atoms or billions do you have just to make up your fingernail? Mm-hmm. And if each atom is essentially energy the size of the Earth and 18 tennis balls circling around it, they're all piled in together. When you think about it, it's all energy.
What's interesting is that this kind of reality is hard for a lot of people to perceive, although we are energy, although we are connected. But it's very hard for our day-to-day beings to perceive that, to live that.
Exactly.
And let's have you speak about the practices, the different kinds of spiritual practices you'll be involved in. Maybe that will get us closer to the connectedness.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. And so let's just go back to what you said. The reality is that we're connected, but we can't see it because we can't see it.
That's right, yeah.
We can't see the atoms inside ourselves. We can only see the physical part. But tradition, through every tradition, a major tradition, start out with the Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition. Well, they talk about one God. In Hebrew, they say, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Listen, God is one. We're all connected to the one. Jesus talks about God and the single energy that we're all connected to. Allah and the Mohammed tradition of Islam is precisely the same. They're all based on we're connected to God. And so you could see that as the energy. You could see the metaphors that they used thousands of years ago can now be translated into quantum physics. And so what's interesting to me, now you go into the Eastern traditions, Buddhism says we all have a Buddhist nature.
That's right, yeah.
And so we're all connected to that. We all have that same nature, that same underlying essence that's connected to us, that's who we are, that we might say is love or connectedness. Taoism talks about being in nature. The Tao that you can speak of is not the Tao, because you can't explain this. You can't talk about energy and nothingness as being the reality. The Hindus talk about the illusion of materiality and of ourselves. And we're not really anything. We don't, because they're saying in our essence we're just energy which can't be seen. Now we could go into a lot of other scientific principles, but the interesting thing for me is we're now in a place where our scientific knowledge has explained these mysteries, these spiritual traditions in a concrete way. So a number of groups I'm involved with say we're in a transition, a huge transition, maybe the biggest transition since Copernicus discovered that the Earth does not revolve around the sun. Later on, that the Earth is not flat. And then you had the Age of Enlightenment, you had the reasoning, you had all these kind of traditions in the Western Hemisphere that brought us this scientific knowledge. So think back 500 years ago, just in your mind, and go back and try to get in touch with the fact that that really happened. People were really living then. If you said to somebody, hey, the Earth is round, they would say, well, the church would kill you.
That's right, it did.
And they would kill Copernicus for saying that the sun does not revolve around the Earth. He had to publish his book posthumously.
That's right, yeah.
And so we're in the same place. If I say to someone, hey, you're just an energy, they're like, yeah, okay, you know, because we're not living from the reality of our connectedness. That's my point.
That's
just
right,
like the people 500 years ago weren't living from the reality of the sun not revolving around the Earth. The Earth always revolved around the sun. But the paradigm that people were living in was different. Their paradigm was that the sun revolved around the Earth was flat. And one more thing about science, there's Stephen Hawkins is a well-known genius physicist. He wrote a book recently in the last year or two called The Grand Design. And one of the things that interests me about this book is that he goes through the history of physics. And what he demonstrates in that history, in looking at the Romans and the Greeks and prior to that, and then these different changes, that whenever societies had a view of metaphysics, what the world was like, their social actions reflected that.
That's right, yeah.
So what I'm saying is, if we want to change our culture and get to a point where we're not killing each other, where we're living from harmony and well, we're in the age of Aquarius, so it's time for that. But what we need to do is change our reality, change the paradigm that we're operating from to recognize the reality that we're all connected. And so if I think something, if I do something, any action I take, my energy is impacting you.
That's right, yeah.
And your energy is impacting me. In a sense, we're the same being. We're connected. And so for me to do something that damages you is the same as me shooting myself in the foot. So what I'm saying is, and the reason I've titled my work at this point in this area, Living from the Reality of Our Connectedness, is because it is reality.
And what's interesting is that you are bringing this reality to the society, to the community here with all your different efforts. And I want to give the viewers some background. So you've been the co-host of the Hawaii Forgiveness Project for 12 years. And you have been active practitioner of various sects of Buddhism. I said Confucianism, but that wasn't listed. I'll get to that. It could well be Confucianism because of the connection, because of the middle way.
Yes.
But you have Christianity, Taoism, Sufism, and also Seicho no Ye. You've been studying that for 35 years.
And Judaism.
Judaism. Wow, adding one more. And you have been the director of the Joseph Campbell Foundation, the Hawaii chapter of Attitudinal Healing, and the Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice, among other things you'll be involved. So you are everywhere, and I know you're known to many people, and all of your efforts and these different things you're doing seems to be about connectedness, coming back to the central theme.
I think it is, and I'm 69 this year, so I'm going into my 8th decade. And as I get there, things have come together for me somewhat like that. And I feel this is something that I want to do in the remaining, hopefully 50 years of my life here. But the Joseph Campbell Foundation takes us to another sector. So science, religion. Campbell was a mythologist and an academic. He was a professor at Sarah Lawrence College for many years. He actually has tremendous connections to Hawaii. He's buried up in the Nu'uanu Cemetery. Not too many people know that.
Wow.
His wife, Jean Erdman Campbell, still lives here. She's 98 this year. And
I know there was a celebration last year, or earlier this year.
Well, we've been getting the Campbell Foundation to come and celebrate her birthdays. We're going to have a huge celebration on her 100th birthday.
Oh, wow. That's great.
But Campbell studied this not from the religious sect, not from the scientific, but from an academic viewpoint. And he studied literally thousands of religions, thousands of and cultures, and looked at all of them and found that there were several links, among other findings, that he looked for the connective aspect. What were the things that were similar, not so much different?
That's right.
What were similar in all
the
these?
Heroes in
the hero's
with
journey.
with 100 faces.
The hero of 1,000 faces.
Of 1,000 faces.
The hero of
That's
1,000, 10,000 in Chinese.
That's right.
But 1,000 faces, and he found these similarities. And one of the similarities was that in each tradition, there was this understanding, belief, that they were all connected to some universal energy. And similar to that, or from that the way to lead a good life, a pono life, a satisfying life, is to be in service with others. Not so much competition, but in service with others, so that we can collaborate to move the society forward, to move humanity forward, and all these similarities. So in my mind, there's kind of 4 ways that I get to reality of connectedness. One is the science, and it's not just quantum physics, but there's many scientists looking at our cellular growth in biology, and then there's the religion, then there's the academic view, and then there's just kind of our knowledge that, hey, yeah, there's a lot of connectedness.
Okay.
If I think of my mother and she calls me on the phone, I mean, I've never met anybody that hasn't happened to. Yet they say, oh, well, you know, that's just a coincidence.
That's right, yeah.
many times you get intuitions that prove to be true. Where does this come from? There's a wonderful book that was very popular some years ago, recent years, called The Celestine Prophecy. And in that book, they talked about focusing on synchronicities, focusing on these magical things that happen to you as if they're real. Look at them because they give you clues about what's the next thing to do. And so I think we can trace back into our day-to-day experiences.
That's right.
And see that this energy is flowing to
So
us.
connectedness is basically everywhere. Everywhere you see, everywhere you go. So let's take a short break, and when we come back, I wanted to have you talk about the different projects you are involved and how they are connected to connectedness, and how you involve yourself and the community in these kind of efforts. And also, at the very end, I wanted to have you explore how you, coming from a Jewish tradition, a tax lawyer, become involved in these magical things. So that's coming up. So this is ThinkTech Asia. I'm your host, Hong Jiang, and we've been speaking with Roger Epstein about connectedness. We'll be right back after this short break.
Okay, this is ThinkTech, and one of our favorite shows is Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. And it goes 4 to 5 every Wednesday right here from ThinkTech in Pioneer Plaza at the core of downtown Honolulu. And my co-host is Ray Starling from Hawaii Energy. Ray, do you like the show?
I love the show. It's great to see all the new people coming in with new ideas about how to save energy, get us off of fossil fuel, and that's what it's all about. So Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, see us on Wednesday afternoons at 4 o'clock.
I knew he'd say that. Thanks, Ray.
Hi, we're back. We're live. This is ThinkTech Asia. I'm your host, Hong Jiang, and we've been speaking with Roger Epstein, who has a title of many things, as we discuss. We're discussing connectedness. So we talk about how everywhere we turn, everywhere we go, it's about the connections.
Yes.
And in terms of how to live that kind of reality, because you've been living this reality through your projects.
Right.
So I wanted to have you talk about some of the projects you're involved, and how did it go, and which one do you want to start? You have many different projects, I know. Forgiveness?
Okay, let's start with forgiveness, and I'll backtrack when I get into it. But for 12 years now, I've been a co-host of the Hawaii Forgiveness Project. And the Hawaii Forgiveness Project was started 12 or 13 years ago, about a year before I got involved as the co-host. Really the inspiration of Dr. Jerry Jampolsky. Jampolsky is a psychiatrist who had an epiphany when he was in his 50s, and began to see that his life as a high-powered type A psychiatrist was not fulfilling, and in fact he was having trouble in many areas of his life, and he had this idea to stop charging for what he did. And he went to the hospital one day, and he heard a boy say, who was dying of leukemia, an 8-year-old, ask his doctor, "What happens when I die?" And the doctor was so flustered that he walked out of the room. So Jerry started support groups for these young men, young children, and then it went so well that he started support groups for the parents and the siblings, and after a while he created something called attitudinal healing.
Okay.
This is about 40 years ago, and attitudinal healing is the idea that everybody has good and bad, everybody has ups and downs, and the most important thing is your attitude about it. And you can control your attitude. No matter what happens to you, you can begin to let go and experience it. It's happened. And this gets into the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness in this context is letting go of the attachment that the hold that the past has on you. Jerry has a nice saying, give up all hope for a better past. And so the reason you do that is because that past has very negative consequences on you if you don't.
That's right.
Not forgiving, staying angry at somebody for years and years is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die.
That's a good saying.
Yeah.
A good way to put it.
And it's a good way to put it because it's about you letting go. Now, you don't have to not get restitution. You don't have to let go of the need for things to happen. Somebody commits a crime, they need to go to prison perhaps, or they need some kind of rehabilitation. Somebody steals something from you, you should get it back. But you don't have to hold on to your anger about it.
That's right.
You can come from a place of neutrality, a place of acceptance of what's happened, and then let's move on. So Jerry's written the books on forgiveness. His first book was called Love is Letting Go of Fear. And again, it gets into this essence, the essence of our being. We say connectedness, he would say is love. And the reason we don't act from that place is because we get fearful.
Okay.
And maybe the reason we don't forgive is because we're afraid that the other person will do it again, or we're afraid that we'll be seen as stupid or powerless, and all these.
Oh, sometimes we can't get out of our own hurt.
We can't get out of our own hurt. And so we keep abusing ourselves with this poison or this rumination that goes on in your head. Oh, why the heck did I do that? How was I so stupid? What does this do for you except make matters worse and pour more and more victim on you and more negativity? So I met the Jampolskys when I was a trustee at the Queen's Hospital for 5 years between 95 and 2000. I was brought in because of my experience in many of these religious traditions, different spiritual traditions, alternative health. I'd been involved with Chinese medicine. I was a chairman of the board of an acupuncture college for 20 years.
Oh wow, that's something I didn't know.
And so I was very close with the people who were running the Queen's Hospital and the Queen's Health System, and they asked me to come on the board in 1995 to be a trustee to help them bring complementary medicine into the hospital because I was in two worlds. I was had this background with Tibetan Buddhist healing, with Chinese medicine healing, with other kinds of spirituality, and at the same time I was the head of the tax department and am now the senior partner in the largest law firm in the state of Hawaii. So I'm kind of walking at Bishop and King Streets and also in the Chinese acupuncture community.
Wow.
So the Jampolskys had relocated here half their time, and I met them, and we became good friends, and through the Queen system, I helped them give a number of talks in town to meet some people. They actually did a lot of their work with the judiciary here, with some legislators, with some people in agencies, the Department of Health and Human Services, and so I've been able to facilitate and bring together some of these different areas.
Oh, so from the Queen Hospital, the alternative health to attitudinal healing to forgiveness project.
Yes,
I
it kind of
see.
worked in that direction. And then the forgiveness project was facilitated originally by Michael Broderick, who became a judge about a year after we began the project. So there were 3 or 4 people who were really the founders of this idea. Along with Jerry was the inspiration, he and his wife Diane Cirincione. And then Michael was the host. And then he became a judge and he couldn't do it anymore. So he asked around anybody willing to do this, so I agreed to use the facilities at Cades, and Cades has been wonderful, the Cades Shetty Law Firm, to allow us to use their facilities. Now we've met once a month for the last 12 years in that office, and annually we have Hawaii International Forgiveness Day, which is celebrated the first Sunday in August, which is commemorative of the bombing of Hiroshima.
I see.
Which was a horrible event, which we've had many people come and demonstrate forgiveness that happened. It happened. Let go of all hope that it ain't going to happen again, because it already happened. It's coming up, actually, August the 3rd. This year, we're having our celebration at the Mystical Rose Auditorium on the Chaminade campus. And we're doing something that I think is going to be really fascinating, which is forgiveness and silence.
Oh.
And
Like meditation?
well, we're going to have Christian, Buddhist, one other religious tradition, and art and dance. And we're going to have 5 presenters from those traditions, and they're each going to show how silence is important in their forgiveness part, because forgiveness is so important in every religion. That's one thing we learned early on with the Forgiveness Project. There are no religions that don't believe that forgiveness is a huge part of their discipline and their way of connecting with the universal energy. And so someone is going to demonstrate Christian prayer and Buddhist prayer or chanting or something, and then they're going to show how silence connects you with this ability to forgive.
I see.
One of the interesting things about silence and meditation is a lot of times you don't recognize what's going on with you. You can ask people, well, are you still angry? No, I'm not angry.
But when they sit down in a quiet time?
Then it hits them. They get in touch with the experience that they aren't able to let go of, or experiences they're not even aware of, that it happened to them when they were 2, 3 years old, and they're still angry about it. But if you sit quietly, you begin to have things come up, and when they come up as visions or thoughts or feelings, now you know it's something that you're still holding on to. And so you can get back in touch with it, and you can re-experience it and let it go.
That's right.
You don't need to hold on to these things.
So these events are open to the public. How
Free.
can people find
Free.
information about this?
Please go on to the HawaiiForgivenessProject.org website and sign in. We usually have 300 or 400 people at our annual program. The Mystical Rose Oratory only seats 250. So what we've done is we've said, if you want, you can go onto the website and reserve 10 tickets, up to 10, and just sign up, and they're free, but at least you have a ticket, you have an advance ticket to it. So we hope this is going to be a unique experience for people.
Sound like a fabulous one.
Yeah, well, again, it's my feeling, and many of us who are participating again, we have so many problems in society. We can focus on the wars and the terrorism and the health problems and the government. But you know, all those problems are just like moving pieces around until we change the underlying paradigm of our lives, the underlying platform. We're connected to each other. We're not just separate. Life is not about what can I get? How much can I get? More in it for me. Yes, we need things to live on. We need things as humans, but we really get joy out of connecting with other people, collaborating, helping them. How much pleasure do you get out of helping someone who's in need, who you can do some good for?
What's interesting, I want to read out one passage you sent to me when we talk about this program. And you said, we are living in a false paradigm that we are separate from each other rather than the reality that we're both separate and entirely connected. The problems we're experiencing in the world today are completely based on our inability to live from reality, and this is time to make the shift. Each of us must, one person at a time, through whichever of the huge number of methodologies that are now easily available to anyone. So I want to kind of have you talk a little bit more about this particular idea after we come back from the break.
Okay.
So we're taking a short break. This is ThinkTech Asia. We'll be talking with Roger Epstein about connectedness. I'm your host, Hong Jiang, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard, and I host the show Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series right here every Wednesday from 2 to 3 Hawaii time. I would really love to have you watch the show and see what we do here. I talk with some of the most amazing people, artists, most of them, all of them involved in some sort of artistic process. And our goal here on the show is to dig into that artistic process, and you would not believe what some people say, what some people do, what people go through to express. And these are people who have to express somehow, and I find that infinitely interesting. Not only that they have to express, but how they end up doing it. I really hope that you will watch the show and enjoy talking with some of these people the same way that I do. Thanks, and I hope to see you soon on Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series, Wednesdays from 2 to 3. See you soon.
Hi, we're back, we're live. This is ThinkTech Asia. We've been talking with Roger Epstein about connectedness, living from the reality of our connectedness. So right before the break, I read out that passage about what you said. And my understanding of what you wrote there is that we are responsible for the reality that we are experiencing. And that sometimes is a hard concept for people because, you can always find out or point to the fingers to somebody else to say, well, somebody did it and he's at fault, she is at fault, and the society is at fault. So how do we start to take responsibility?
Well, we begin to look at the situation from a different viewpoint. Interestingly, in the Hawaiian spiritual tradition, whenever anything bad or good happens to you, but let's look at the bad side, your first reaction is, what did I do to bring this into my life? Because there's always something that you have done to have that happen to you, and also it's also the idea that not only what happened to you, but how you view it. Mm-hmm. As I was saying with the attitudinal healing, if you change your attitude about something, then your whole perspective on it is different. And so if you look at some really bad things that happen in your life or seemed really traumatic at the time, you'll see, if you live through it, what the growth was, what the benefit was to you, what you learned from it. And so on the one hand, we can say, well, whatever happens, let's change our perspective on it. Let's look at it as what's going on here. This happened, and what was the good part of it? Mm-hmm. What's in it for me to learn from? So in that sense, we stop blaming because we're now looking at what did we get out of it? What was the good part of it? Mm. It's a little more esoteric to get into this Hawaiian concept that we essentially magnetize things into our lives. But the nature of the energy is such that we have tremendous power to bring things to us. And when you think of this connective energy, you and I are having all these reactions. I'm putting out energy, it's bouncing off you, it's coming back to me, mm-hmm. the same thing. Well, I'm putting that energy out into the world. If I'm a salesperson and I go out and I make a call and they don't buy it, okay. I could feel bad. I could blame that person. He didn't buy it. I have such a good product. Or I could say, okay, not everybody's going to agree with me. I accept that didn't work out. I'll go to somebody else. And at some point in time, there'll be a sale. And then I'll begin to understand that I'm not going to make a sale every time. But I've got to keep projecting myself out, getting rejected. If I want to keep on persevering, this is how that particular system works. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So getting back to the whole idea of taking responsibility, when you don't take responsibility, then you become a victim. when you don't let go of the past, you can sit and really suffer through, someone did this to me. Or you can accept what happened, take that negative energy away from you, because the victimhood, the idea that I'm helpless, that somebody needs to pay me back, that's going to keep me stuck in the same place. But if I can let it go, I can accept, now I'm ready to move on to say, well, where do I go from here? This is where I am right now in the moment. Where do I go take the next step down the road? I'm not sure I completely answered your question. But
Well, I think I want to have you give you an opportunity to explore further in this because it's a big question.
yeah.
You talk about you can use, adopt any of the different methodologies, meaning like maybe different religious practices and different traditions to get there.
Yes.
So maybe you can give an example of, maybe a personal example or some example using one of the methods or methodologies of tradition
Yeah.
and see how to get to the place of connectedness and, I suppose, peace.
Peace. I think peace, let me put this in a little context too. A peace of mind goes with being in the present. Now think about this. There's no action you've ever taken in your life that didn't happen now, in the present. It's impossible for us to do anything except now. But part of our minds are often in the past because we don't let go. And another part of our minds may be in the future because we're worried about what's going to happen. So what we want to do is get ourselves into the present, and then we can be our most effective, our most efficient. This is the best way to be, and at the same time, we have this peace of mind that you're talking about. So the first practice is to understand where you are, to see yourself. We're so busy doing so many things, we don't want to stop and notice what's going on with us. So meditation or reflective contemplation, or just being still, being in a place out in nature, is maybe the first place to see an examination of what's going on with you. So that's a first methodology, and I just mentioned 4 ways: meditation, contemplative reflection, sitting still, being out in nature, to get you into that place. All right, now you recognize that you're not at peace, that something's going on with you. Now, this could be a huge trauma that just happened. It could be something that happened 20 years ago, or it could be something simple. Let's take something simple that happens to us every day. I run into somebody and I say something to them, and as I walk away, I think, why did I say that? Boy, isn't that dumb? And I begin to berate myself. I begin to relive, oh, I should have said this. Oh, why didn't I say that? Well, the whole situation was 20 minutes ago. There's nothing you could say. Or maybe it was an hour ago. Or okay. So one of the things that I use is a mantra, a statement that I say to myself over and over again. There's really 2 I've been using lately, but I like this one a lot. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I got this from a book called Zero Limits. And it goes into Ho'oponopono and the Hawaiian tradition, but I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Now, what I do, as soon as I catch myself ruminating about some incident like that, I begin to say this to myself silently over and over again.
Okay.
And I'm at a point now where if I say it 3 or 4 times, the other incident is gone from my mind.
Okay.
I allowed my mind to shut up a little bit. And I also put a thought into it that's so much more positive and so much more freeing of myself to move on. Let's close up that last event. You know I'm not going to remember it a week from now. I might not remember it 20 minutes, an hour or 2. This gets it off as soon as I recognize that that's what's going on. So that mantra is a really good one. Another one that I used is for sometimes for things that come up to me, not just this ongoing kind of thing, but something occurs to me that I'm still angry at somebody, or something that happened a week ago, a year ago, just an image comes up and I begin to notice that I haven't resolved this. I say to myself, give up all hope for a better past. And I say that a few times, and then I find that that experience has now disappeared from my memory. This goes back to me to the connected energy.
Mm-hmm.
You see, energy, like matter, is neither created nor destroyed. So we know from physics, Newtonian physics, that matter is neither created nor destroyed. Well, energy and matter are the same thing. E equals mc squared means energy equals matter times a constant, which means matter that's speeded up a lot is energy. It's speeded up the speed of light squared, which happens to be 4 trillion feet per second. If you could wave your arm 4 trillion feet per second, it would disappear because it would just be energy.
Okay.
So let me get back to the premise. Matter is neither created nor destroyed. The energy equals matter, that's speeded up. So energy is neither created nor destroyed. When I have a traumatic experience and create a bunch of energy, it goes somewhere. It either leaves my body or it stays in my body. When you have something that happens to you, that energy may be anywhere in your body. Something your father said to you may be right here. I'm serious. You can go through a practice called Rolfing and other practices of physical touch where you'll get an image and you'll realize, yeah, I was holding my father over here and all the mean things he did to me. So that energy that's in there has an impact on the rest of you, including your mind.
Okay, those are great examples. Now I have a question, because the viewers are there thinking, well, you know, how can I get to this connectedness and live a better life? Do I have to learn all these different methods that you're dealing with? The question would be,
yes.
You know, if I'm a Christian, if I'm a Buddhist, can I go deep enough just in my own tradition to get there? And my understanding is that every of these traditions would lead you to a place of peace.
Absolutely. And you can see that the intention of those traditions is to lead you to that place of peace.
That's right, yeah.
So I've been giving a workshop every month for the last 3 or 4 months at the Bodhi Tree Meditation Center on this topic, how to live from the reality of our connectedness. And so what I say is, first of all, what's keeping us from doing that? Is it because we haven't thought of it? Is it because we don't really believe we're connected? Is it because we don't have the time to do it? And I go from there to say, look, if you want to live from this reality, and we talked before about why this is the right time to do this. And I get back into that for a second, but let me go to your question. We then create a plan for each one of us because we're all such unique people.
That's right.
And because we have to take responsibility for doing this. I can't do this for you.
That's right.
I can only do it for myself, and I happen to be from, this is the way I got there. So I say to everybody there, here's an outline of a plan. Create a plan for yourself, which is to get you to live from the reality of your connectedness. Let's start with, why aren't you there? What's holding you back?
So what you do is that you support people who come from different traditions. They don't have to learn new tradition at all. Stay with where they are and go deeper.
Yeah, and see, what are you doing now? Are you practicing Catholicism? Are you practicing Buddhism? Are you getting to the essence part of that that leads you to this understanding of what Jesus said or what the Buddha said? We're all connected to this universal energy. So maybe focus on that aspect of your tradition. Do you have practices like the mantras I talked about? Do you have a meditation practice or contemplate? Do other exercises.
Or do whatever you do to get there.
Do whatever you do, or find something new if there's a part of this you're not doing. So,
if you're not satisfied with what you're doing.
If you're doing, let's say you're in a particular religious tradition, and that's fine. You're happy with that. You want to stay there. It's important to you. Or dig into that to where that can be of help. Is there a mantra in that tradition? Okay, find the mantra if you don't have it. Is there a meditation practice? Now, getting into the physical energy, one of the things is, well, how about the energy inside us? How does that feel? Well, just put your hands together. Put your hands like this and just hold it. You can begin to feel the energy between your hands. Well, how about if you go like that? If you focus more, you begin to feel it. Now, I can go like this and push this hand with my other hand. This is kind of the Qigong practice.
That's right, yeah.
That this hand's not moving. This hand is pushing it. And so, how far out does that energy go?
So you have to really quiet yourself and observe and be aware in order to feel that.
You do. And you have to train yourself a little bit to get the sense, because you don't pick it up right away. But after a while, as you know, I've been doing Qigong for 40 years. And so I understand that all I have to do is focus on my breathing and concentrate on my hands, and they'll move themselves. But the purpose of that is to get you to see that that energy's out there. It's not just in your body, it's out there, and your energy's coming to me. And so we're all kind of in this, we're like drops of water in the ocean.
That's right.
In an ocean, in an infinite ocean.
We just have a few minutes left, and I want to get to your story. How did you get to these different approaches and start to explore all these different things here, these all different, spiritual traditions?
Yeah.
How did you become aware that you need to do this?
Well, that's interesting to me anyway, maybe others. I came out to Hawaii as an East Coast Jewish tax lawyer.
Okay.
And I was very much into my own tradition. I was very much into my head. I was very much into materialism and our dominant culture. I had been raised in the Jewish tradition and had quite a background in that, but it didn't mean much to me after I became an adult. And then I came to Hawaii with my first wife, and I had a very messy divorce. It was a difficult experience. She left under difficult circumstances, and I actually was totally broken down. And I just opened up to the fact that I was miserable. Whereas before I had this attitude of superiority, an attitude of arrogance. I had to let that go because I was so broken down. And one of the consequences of that, not only my mental breakdown for about a year, this was 1974, it was difficult for me to function at work, but I regained myself, and I hurt my back at the same time. That led me to go from doctor to chiropractor to acupuncturist.
Oh, that's where you get to the alternative medicine.
That's where I began to get into as an acupuncturist. Then the acupuncturist said, well, you could get acupuncture treatments forever, or you could learn to do Qigong and give yourself an acupuncture
Interesting.
treatment. Then she said, I've got a Taoist church and an acupuncture clinic and a school. I got some tax problems.
Oh, that's where you get into, and then we can connect the story from here on.
Right. So
in terms of how you got
helped
into
her
this.
taxes, and then she said, "Well, now that you've reorganized my company, why don't you be chairman of the board for 20 years?"
Okay, so it's almost like talking about energy. Energy can be transformed. That a bad thing is not necessarily a bad thing.
Absolutely.
It leads you to this great journey of exploration that is never ending.
I hope it's never ending. Let me just give you one more metaphor. I see that experience now as if I was on a ladder against a wall. And I went up this ladder and I got this far, and then I couldn't go any farther.
It's a round wall.
Many people get stuck there, and they live their lives in maybe what you might call quiet desperation. But I fell off the ladder, and I broke a lot of stuff. And even in the breaking, I had to put myself back together again, Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah.
And then I went up another ladder. Only that ladder went a lot higher.
That's right.
And it went to a different place. And so I kind of see those bad things in life maybe in that metaphor. That's been my experience.
That is a great ending to the program. We're running out of time, and we're going to have you back in 2 weeks from today, on July 29th, to talk about the other aspect of your life related more to your business side, your work with the Chinese business. And so that is Roger Epstein on living from the reality of our connectedness. And thank you so much for tuning in. This is a ThinkTech Asia. I'm your host, Hong Jiang, and I'll see you next Tuesday.